Here's something that's riled some people up. We have excellent medical benefits at the county. And every single employee, including me, has the entire premium for his health care benefits paid for by the taxpayer. Now that is great when you're in a collective bargaining unit and you're bargaining for that. You're saying, you know, my wages aren't going to be what I might get somewhere else, but on the other hand, I'm getting good health benefits. When you're a highly paid elected official or a highly paid staffer for an elected official, it's kind of hard to justify having people who are being laid off or in fear of being laid off or in fear of losing their homes paying my entire health care premium. So I introduced legislation that said if you're not represented and you make more than the average worker, you pay a little bit towards your health care premium. Oh my gosh, you would think it's the end of the world. People are having a fit over it. But if we don't take seriously the fact that doesn't pass a straight face test, that somebody making $120,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 is having their full health care benefits paid for in a time of crisis, then we have a very hard time going back to the taxpayer and saying we need more money to provide these basic services. Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Go ahead.
I have one. I was at the forum at the Carpenters Hall on May 5th up for the King County, and you had mentioned that you thought a solution to some of the budget problems was to have different cities annex land or unincorporated land around them. So I live in Auburn, and I know there's many people here who live in Enumclaw, and I'm wondering what unincorporated land do you see the cities of Auburn and Enumclaw taking on? And then how are you going to get people to vote on that or even vote for you saying that? Because the cities themselves can't afford it.
There's not a ton of urban zoned unincorporated land, and that's the part that has to go into cities. That most of the people who live in urban unincorporated King County live in places like North Highline, which is White Center. There are 35,000 people living in North Highline who aren't part of any city, and people who live inside cities like Enumclaw and Auburn are paying taxes that are supporting the urban level services those folks need. They need to be in a city. Under the state law, as well as county policy, folks who live in urban areas need to get into cities which can better provide for their needs. The rural areas, the forest areas, the agricultural areas are not supposed to be in cities. That is always going to be part of the county's direct service area. So it's not, in this neck of the woods, and Auburn is huge, geographically speaking. So having Auburn expand even further doesn't solve a lot of financial problems for the county. But the near-in areas, there's some up around Kirkland and in North Highline and in between Federal Way and Kent. Those areas need to get annexed for the services to be provided.
Talk about the Seattle centrism of the executive's office.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As the county has grown, the population outside of Seattle has grown a lot. The institutions have been very slow to change to recognize that. My district, both in the legislature and on the council, has always been half in Seattle and half out of Seattle. And it has always been rural and suburban cities and urban unincorporated areas and Seattle neighborhoods, South Seattle neighborhoods. And I've worked directly with citizens across a range of issues, from the fact that they can't get their well to gang problems in White Center. I think that this county is ready for us to break out of these old, stale, geographically based arrangements that we have and start talking about us as one county. Most people who live in this county don't any longer think of it as just the town they live in. They might live in one city and work in another, or they might live in the rural area and work in a city, or they might live in the rural area and have a home business there. And the fact that we have institutions, not just informal, but formal institutions that divide the county into thirds, arbitrary thirds, I think doesn't make that much sense anymore. The way it's developed, the way all the cities, Enumclaw, Auburn, Kent have grown up, the power shifted away from Seattle. And transit, buses are a good example of that, right? Most of the service is still in Seattle, because it used to be the Seattle bus system. So now we've got to think about, if we can add service, where are those places where there are jobs and where there are homes where we can actually get a full bus and move people around the county between the places they need to go. I'm chairing the Regional Transit Committee. I'm trying to start that conversation. People are in their trenches. They don't want to let go of what they have. They don't want to let go of the positions they dug themselves into. Much like wanting to talk with our employees about how we can fix things, I want to open it up and say, come on, folks, let's talk about ourselves as a whole region and what's the most logical thing to do, what's the fairest thing to do. And I'll finish with this. And I appreciate your indulgence in some of the questions. One of the problems we've had in our region has been big egos in their fiefdoms. Every one of our 39 cities in King County and the county itself and the special purpose districts have kind of an incentive to internalize their revenues and externalize their costs and try to take credit for the good stuff that happens and avoid getting stuck with the bad stuff. I don't have a gigantic ego. I'm somebody who's glad to convene the folks, get the conversation going, find a solution and not worry about who takes credit. That's what's going to happen for us to be able to govern in the 21st century in an era of diminished resources, and let's face it, we're never going to be back to the old days where there's plenty of money to do everything in government. So if you want somebody who's a workhorse, who's not always front and center at the press conference, but is sometimes more likely to be found in the back drafting the legislation, Chris Hurst, and you remember all that hard work, then I'm your guy. And if you want somebody whose office is always going to be open to new ideas and fresh perspectives, then I'm your guy. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.